Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FITPRO doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FITPRO? This is the FITPRO Session Podcast with Parallel Coaching.
A FITPRO's Guide to Behaviour Change.
Welcome to Season 8, FITPRO Sessions. Here we are, Behaviour Change.
I'm so excited about this season.
We've had so many FITPROs reach out over the last couple of years saying, guys, when will you do something on behaviour change? And we've dabbled in behaviour change on previous episodes and we've talked about it. We even had sessions, FITPRO sessions on NLP, and we jumped in, but we didn't deep dive. And this is what Season 8 is all about. It's behaviour change and how a FITPRO, how you can become more knowledgeable, more confident in behaviour change strategies and put a toolbox together that allows you to work confidently and competently with clients to elicit long-term change in your clients.
I love that analogy, that idea of grabbing a tool out of a toolbox as your behaviour change strategies as a FITPRO that you can use with your clients. And that's kind of what we'll look at throughout all of Season 8, is giving you some really tangible tools that you can use. But today is all about setting that scene.
It's setting context today, isn't it? It's understanding
why?
What is behaviour change and why should we be concerned with it as a FITPRO? Understanding what motivation is and understanding what habits are. And I think once we've set that scene and understood that, we can move forwards into the toolbox. So in future weeks, we'll talk specifically about motivational interviewing, NLP, we will talk about hypnosis, cognitive behaviour therapy, self-efficacy, and there's lots of things that you can, I want to look at behaviour change and say, well, I've got a toolbox and I could just use the very therapeutic approach of motivational interviewing with a client to elicit change or to move a client along their journey. Okay. Or I could have a number of tools and say, well, I could take this from motivational interviewing and be compliant, and this from cognitive behaviour therapy and be compliant.
And when use it in different ways at different times.
Because as we've understood from previous FITPRO sessions, if you think about the principles of training and individuality, every client is an individual.
And every situation, every goal is different.
So there is no one size fits all. And I think that's the toughest part with systems around behaviour change, or systems within fitness itself, is we're applying one thing to the majority and saying, well, this will work. Or maybe it will or won't work. It's just being open-minded and being flexible to say, well, I've got a toolbox, okay? I want to put a hole in the wall. Now, a drill bit would be the best option here with a drill, but I also have a sledgehammer. And the sledgehammer could put a hole in the wall. Okay? It might not look pretty.
Well, that's your then skill set, isn't it, as a FITPRO, to say, well, I could use something else here. I could use this and I'd get a result, or I could use something very different and get a different result. How do I pick the tool, the strategy, the behaviour change system, the principle? How do I adjust my questioning as a FITPRO to really benefit?
And I think that's what, setting that early scene context of what behaviour change is, it's that communication, isn't it? It's the overarching watermark behind a client getting a result. We, as FITPROs, we could all agree that if somebody wants to lose weight, they need to move more, expend more calories, or they need to eat less and not consume as many calories and create a calorie deficit. So we know that the vast majority, 99.9% of a person's goal, regardless of it being weight loss or weight gain, or to do their 10 pull-ups, or to do a park run, or to have a performance-based goal and do a triathlon, whatever it might be, we know that there's going to be elements of training and physical activity.
Definitely.
And we know there's going to be elements of nutrition. But why, we all know that, but why don't we do what we know? And so what I really like, you've used this analogy before and we use it in FITPRO 31, is the glue that holds all this together.
Absolutely.
And
is the behaviour change. It's the mindset.
Change. It's the mindset.
Yeah.
We've said it before on various revision bites and FITPRO sessions, is if I went into Tesco's and took 100 people and I said, how do you lose weight, or how do you gain weight, or how do you control your weight, okay, or how do you improve your 10k run time, everyone will know what to do. But why is it people don't always...
How many people actually do what they know?
Do what they know. And we're all guilty of this, myself included.
Yeah. And that's why, like, it's not really about having... It's not just about having the perfect exercise plan or the perfect nutritional dietary advice, but it's about the only thing that matters is if your client can do it and stick to it and have that as a behaviour.
Behaviour change for us as a FITPRO is, how do I support the client, okay, in a very empathetic, ethical way that guides the client on their own journey, that is client-centred, that takes... Together we kind of almost hold hands and we go on this journey from A to B.
Yeah, nice.
And how do I move the client elegantly along that path, and more so, how does the client guide themselves? And I really like this analogy because my coach introduced me to this, of the lighthouse and the tugboat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
And
I like
so
this.
for me, behaviour change, if I was to have my own what would it be?
Like your own opinion of what behaviour change is.
Yeah, like dictionary definition from Neale Bergman.
The Neale definition.
Would be, as a coach, I become the lighthouse and I can shine light on the road ahead.
Nice.
I can shine light on the rocks. I can shine light on the weather coming in as the lighthouse, and make people aware of the hidden dangers along the route they want to take. Now, here's the thing. The client can take any number of routes. They're in control.
Oh, I like that.
They're in control of the path. They're in control of where they sail. My job as the coach is to say, well, hold on a minute, you're getting really close to the rocks.
Can you see the rocks
Can you see the rocks here?
Nice.
How shall we move forwards together with this? Versus the tugboat, okay, which is the coach, where I could say, hold on a minute, I don't know, let's give the client a name. Let's call the client Bob and say, Bob, you're coming this way. Get out of the way of the rocks. And I pull the client to, out of
So he's
out
not
of
making a
harm's way.
decision. He's not seeing the rocks. He's not making a decision. He's just letting you pull him around.
Yes. And this is what I see a lot of FITPROs guilty of as well, is they are, without them really knowing it, is they are the tugboat pulling their clients towards what they consider to be the best or safest route, but it's not client-centered.
So they've not actually made the decision to make that new behaviour, that new thing, which I find really interesting, is the difference between what a behaviour is and what a habit is.
Well, let's jump into that.
Should we jump into that now? Because I think it really relates to what you said about the tugboat as well.
What I love about this season already, it's going to be very much discussion-based.
Yeah.
Okay, whereas... Because that's what, let's just
Yes,
go with
do
that.
it. Okay,
go
cool.
with it.
So a behaviour is a particular action or a thing that you do that relates, that is a response or a reaction to your environment, your values, your beliefs, your thought process, maybe even your goals.
So
but it's a behaviour.
A behaviour. I've just done it. For those of you that are watching on screen, I just had a sip of my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So my behaviour was an action, a response to thirst.
Yeah, you're like, I'm thirsty, I'm going to have some tea. I've got a pause in my thought, I'm going to have some tea.
Or maybe it was a craving or a cue that said I needed a pick-me-up.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't have sugar in it, but maybe it was something to do with the caffeine in it.
Yes.
And so I'm behaving in response to something.
Yes, and we'll dive into the theory behind that in a sec.
So I'm just going to pause there, like on that. It just gets me thinking. That's what I love about this already. It's just that it's a thinking session, isn't it? Because am I moving away from something or towards something?
Yeah.
So am I moving towards the cue of a craving of fulfillment of that tasted really nice?
Right.
Or am I moving away from something and saying, actually, I don't have enough caffeine. I need more caffeine. I need it now.
Either way, it's a behaviour based on something that's happening now.
That's happening, and I'm responding to something, so I behave in a certain way.
And the thing with a behaviour is that you're consciously choosing to behave in that way. It's not automatic, it just becomes a choice in the moment for that one thing.
But however, we could argue, was that a conscious control?
Yeah.
Was I even aware that I picked up that cup of tea?
Maybe not.
Until after I'd done it.
Yeah, maybe not.
Does that make sense?
Either way, a behaviour is a one-time thing, whereas when you then regularly do it over and over and over again, so you regularly do the same behaviour, then it's a habit. So this is the fact that you brush your teeth every morning.
Yeah.
Is a really clear habit. You do it every morning because you've always done it every morning. It's regular. And that's what makes it different between being a behaviour and being a habit, is because you do it regularly. I don't know why this jumped into my head, but we've got next door neighbours a couple of doors down, and they've got kids. Okay, and I remember the summer before last, they would walk to school, and you would always hear the kids kind of moaning at the beginning of term, "Oh, damn it, I don't want to walk to school." Nice.
But after about 4 weeks, they weren't moaning.
No.
And this really...
They got a new habit, it just becomes what they do.
But in the early stages, found that I noticed that the youngsters were moaning about their behaviour, how they were reacting or responding to the reaction that they were going through.
Yeah.
But once it became a habit...
Notice that was like 3 weeks or so, wasn't it?
3-4 weeks in, they were like, actually, this is what we do. And they got on with life. So straight away, from a FITPRO perspective, it would be a reasonable reaction for a client, maybe, and we will discuss this in this episode and future episodes, for a client to have some element potentially of
like resistance.
Of resistance.
Yeah.
And one of the components, I'm going to call them components of motivational interviewing, and we're going to listen to a future episode, so I'm kind of teasing here, is to roll with resistance. That would be one of the therapeutic approaches to working with a client, is rolling with resistance.
And what does that rolling with resistance mean? It's
so
like
the client would be, so if we use the analogy of those kids, okay, the mum or the dad could turn around and battle with them and go, "No, you're going to go to school, you're walking to school, but it's raining, mum, it's raining, I know you," and they go loggerheads.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's clashing. Rolling with resistance is accepting that the kids are going to moan, okay, and scream and kick their feet, and they're just going to still go with it. And the moment you start rolling with resistance and there's no clash or meeting...
Yeah, okay, so it's not making a big deal of it as such.
Every
it's just
action is an
allowing
opposite and
that.
opposing reaction. So there's that kind of like give or take.
Nice.
Whereas with this, you're basically saying, okay, there's resistance is resistance, and you're just going to go with the resistance.
Oh, I like it. So you allow them to still, they're not happy about it, but that's okay. You allow that to happen as the conversation develops, and you still continue walking.
There's various other motivational interviewing techniques inside this therapeutic approach that allows you to ask world-class questions.
Nice.
That allows you to break down this resistance and bring about change.
And that is behaviour change.
And that is behaviour change.
Nice. Okay, so behaviour change to you. You had the example of the lighthouse and the tugboat. Is there anything else about like what behaviour, like you've mentioned an analogy to me about behaviours and finding the right behaviour syntax for a client. Now that every client has a specific syntax.
So everything we do is for a reason, okay? And we might be aware of it consciously or not aware of it unconsciously, but everything you do, how you move, like every second of every day, okay, there's a decision behind it. And each decision is a behaviour that leads to a behaviour and is a habit. So if we could put a code to every one of these behaviours, a bit like a barcode, okay, you could clearly say that in order for me to drink that cup of tea automatically without me thinking about it, was the code 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there would need to be some kind of cue, which would be 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there would be the next step of 2, 3, and 4, and we'll go into that shortly. But in order for me to change my habit, I've first and foremost got to know that code.
Okay, yes.
And then I've got to change that code.
So if I link this to what you said about rolling with resistance and those kids kicking off because they got to walk to school, is it just that there's not been approached in a way that meets their code that they're currently at? So they're reaching that resistance of like, oh, padlock's locked.
Yes.
Can't get in. Padlock's locked.
Yes, completely.
Wrong code. You can't get into this conversation. And then you get that loggerheads.
Yeah, completely. For example, the kids are talking in code 1, 2, 3, 4, and the mum's talking 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, same numbers, just different order.
Nice.
So in order to get through to somebody, and it's like that saying for like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. in order to make them drink the water, you've both got to be speaking the same language, aka opening up the padlock of 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the code. You're talking in code 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll talk to you in code 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at this, the unlock padlock. Let's move forwards together.
Amazing. Good. I love that. Yeah, exactly.
And so we call it a syntax. So it's our job as a FITPRO to understand, I suppose, what code they're talking in.
Yeah, and that comes from understanding, like, if your role as a FITPRO is behaviour change through and through.
First and foremost, like,
the first thing is understanding that code and that padlock and that syntax to understand how you can help your client achieve the transformation they want to achieve.
And
right?
so, like, let's add some like actionable steps of how you could become aware of these codes.
Okay, nice.
So I'm a very visual kinesthetic person. If you want to lead me to water and make me drink it, I would need to feel for water. Okay, and experience for water. Okay,
nice.
I wouldn't want you to talk about the water.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
For people listening to the podcast now, okay,
Yeah.
via Spotify and iTunes, it's because they're primarily auditory people.
Yes.
Okay, yet you might learn best through movement, and so you might be listening to this whilst walking.
Whilst walking and moving.
Yet you guys listening on YouTube are very visual, and you've chosen that as your syntax. So
nice.
One of the first points
It's the communication method they
I
prefer.
want to find out is what's their preferred communication method. Are they a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic person?
And that all only comes from listening and asking great questions and listening to your client in response. And I think that's part of that initial start with your client. And so often, this might be a slight tangent, but so often I've heard about clients, FITPROs going straight in with the client, like first session, we're going straight to exercise. Never any kind of talking or consultation or chat or understanding.
Well, if you look at,
and then you wonder why you can't get through because the padlock's shut.
The backbone to the majority to behaviour change for me is motivational interviewing. And to be compliant to that, 80% of the time the client is talking and 20% of the time I'm listening and talking. Nice. Notice I said listening and talking. If I scramble the words listen, L-I-S-T-E-N, I also get the word silent. Perfect. So they're talking for 80% of the time and I'm listening and silent and talking for 20% of the time. So if I go straight into exercise, we've done no communication. So what I love about that first initial consultation and something we teach inside FITPRO 31 about double consultation. Notice the first 2 sessions with the client are consultations.
Yes.
Okay. The client would walk in, for example, to a coffee shop and they would say, it's great to put a face to the name.
Yeah, of
so
course.
It's visual.
Okay, so you're picking up on all the little
Straight
words
away,
they're
the
saying.
first sentence would be they're visual.
Yes.
Or
God, it's cold in here, isn't it?
It's cold in here. Yeah. Or it would be it's great to hear your voice again.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Or it's great to put a voice to the name.
Yeah.
So okay, so they're auditory. Now I've got a preferred way of learning.
Your syntax, yeah.
Okay, my syntax is very visual and kinesthetic. So I find it hard personally to be auditory.
Yeah.
But if my client turns up and are primarily an auditory person, then I must be able to change my communication in an instant and go down the auditory line.
And it allows you to be empathetic to them and make sense with how you're talking. Because now they're listening going, oh, you're like me, you talk like me.
Exactly, there's the syntax is opening up in that moment. Because if I'm talking in visual and they're listening in auditory,
yes,
there's like code, syntax, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, same numbers. No response.
And that could be as simple as the word, I hear what you're saying or I see what you're saying. It's
tiny, and I call that sensory acuity.
Yeah.
And picking up on those is absolutely fundamental to creating long-lasting behaviour change.
Perfect.
Because right from the get-go, the client's like, I get this person gets me. And you build that relationship.
And that's part of what behaviour change is all about as a FITPRO. So I really want to dive into why behaviour change is so important for FITPROs. And I know we've already got there, like the language needed in a consultation, the empathy, understanding that you're opening up that padlock to allow them to make a change.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think just stands out massively isn't our first and primary role as a FITPRO coaching somebody to achieve a certain outcome. So the amount of times we talk about specificity, a specific outcome based on their individual needs. And in order to do that, that's changing them from being person A to person B, or outcome A to outcome B.
Now, we're talking about, here it goes again, anatomy and physiology. We're talking about an anatomical or physiological change. But there is a conscious decision to change, but there are unconscious drivers to change, but there's also conscious and unconscious drivers and decisions not to change in ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So conscious and unconscious.
So we're wanting to force a physiological adaptation to challenge our energy systems. But why? This is the other underarching question for me. Why does the client want that?
And I think if you know why they want it, then you can know exactly what they will need to achieve.
Well, if you've got a big enough purpose, you'll go after anything, right?
Yeah.
You'll go after anything.
Yeah, well, if you want it enough.
And so that goes back to season 2, which was FITPRO Beginnings, which was start with the end in mind. Like, what is it we're after and why do we want it? If we know why we want that and it's of importance to us, we will find ourselves willing to sacrifice and do anything, okay? Even if it's outside of our comfort zone, or that means giving up our favourite foods, okay? Because the result and the pros of taking action far outweigh the sacrifices or cons.
Amazing. I love that.
So why does the client want it?
And you take action.
So one of the things I'm a big believer of, and something that I've done, I've done various motivational interviewing courses along throughout the years, okay? And I went on a course at Sheffield Hallam Uni. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
Quite a few years ago.
Yeah, God, that was a few years ago.
And I was talking to one of the other, I suppose, delegates on the course. Okay, He was doing like a doctorate in behaviour change, and he said, "Have you tried implementing a head session?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means." And so he said, "Well, one of the things in his study, or one of the things that they were looking at, was placing in regular slots on either a bi-monthly or once a month session, where you basically just spoke and talked and communicated and built more relationship with the client." And I was
as part of like a package for the client.
As part of a package, as part of an intervention to get somebody from A to B.
Amazing, yeah.
And so I want to make note that this course wasn't anything to do with fitness. It was just behaviour change and motivational interviewing. It actually looked at it from a counselling perspective of substance abuse and smoking cessation and alcohol. Because that's effectively where a lot of the behaviour change studies come from.
A lot of the research and studies come from, yeah.
And so following that, I placed in a regular, for some clients, every 2 weeks or at least once a month, we would sit down over a cup of coffee in a quiet place and we would just talk.
Nice.
And we would talk about the goal, and I'd remind them about the goal. I'd remind them of what they've been doing or how far they've come, and I would outline where we're going. And all the time I was just placing this fire in their belly.
Ah, there you go. To make them about like zoning in on their result.
And then I reframed it as they were creating their own inferno of a fire in their own belly, and I was just facilitating the experience by saying, let's meet up at 4:00 next Tuesday, let's meet up at 12:00 for lunch next Thursday. And it gave them a chance to actually reconnect with their goal. And I thought, why are so many people now suddenly achieving their goals compared to, say, before this
I was going to say, that was my question. Do you think that made a difference to the result and the journey of that client?
Huge difference.
But then the knock-on effect, surely, of that is if more clients get results with you, then you're going to end up with more clients from a referral.
With referrals. Yeah, completely.
And they actually have a change that lasts.
But I would pick up on something on the first session, and I'd go, okay, this person, as we go through this season, we're going to develop lots of different tools and talk about them. But let's just go down visual, auditory, kinesthetic, right?
Yeah.
I learned that, for example, let's call him Bob. Bob was an auditory person.
Yeah.
So I would now go away and think about all the questions I could ask in an auditory way. I'm used to working in a visual way.
Ah, nice.
So how would I reframe them? So I'd go back and I would present a different set of questions.
Sounds like you had a great day.
Yeah, completely. And then I'd I'd learn so much more about the client, way more than ever than on a standalone session, whereby we would be out in the park or in the gym or in the squat rack, whatever we were doing, from a physical activity perspective.
Yeah, because you're not talking in those physical sessions, really, are you? Not in depth.
And I noticed that the more I went down the behaviour change route, the less reliant the client was on me on the physical sessions. So I found I could actually do more head sessions and less physical sessions.
And they'd actually get better results,
and actually,
even physically.
What the client was really after was long-term change.
Nice.
And what was really interesting, like we're recording this at the beginning of March 2011.
2021.
2021.
You lost 10
2011.
years.
Oh my God.
Neil just lost 10 years. Did we look any younger?
Yeah, completely. But what was really interesting was one of the clients that we do a morning live on Facebook.
Yeah.
And one of the clients that I kickstarted with on this day 6 years ago was on this morning's live for Parallel.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's still doing the same thing, not the same thing from a plateau perspective, but he's still in a state of action,
the same consistency,
the same daily behaviours and the same habits that we kickstarted 6 years ago.
That's so powerful in terms of his journey.
Yes.
And actually, if you look at any client that's maybe rebounded or bounced when you finished working with them, that's surely a sign that the behaviour, the individual action didn't become a habit that automatically happens as a priority.
That's a wicked place. Now we can start to steer this session, okay? Because how many clients have you had? Now I want to be really honest now and drop a comment below of whatever platform you're on or message us. You know, have you ever had a client where they turn around and go like, I've tried this before. I've tried this diet, I've tried that diet.
Weight Watchers, I've tried Slimming World, I've tried exercise.
Let's not be disparaging.
Just anything.
Because every dietary approach could work.
Yes.
What doesn't work, I want you to consider at this moment, is for client. And that's not that the client is broken. It's the fact that we've not been able to open up the syntax to be able to coach with them, alongside them, for them, with them, part of that process.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
It's really powerful to be able to then say, you've not been able to get a result yet in all those methods, only because you've not found the right padlock to open up and set yourself your new behaviours and habits. But here, as your new FITPRO that's going to help you work through this, we're actually in a place where we're going to be able to work with you, talk with you, open up the padlock. Providing
they're ready. And we're going to talk about this next week around someone's readiness to change. Yeah. Because they could try, I could have had loads of success with previous clients up to date. And I could get a new client today, and if they're not ready, the padlock ain't going to open.
Yeah. And so we've had this from a revision point of view so many times where people have gone, like, because without a doubt, our Revision Mastery Bootcamp works. Like, it 100% works.
It's inarguable because 8,000 plus people have used it to pass, and we've only got 5-star reviews.
Yeah. So it works, 100% it works. But it only works if the person using it is ready to use it and actually uses it and learns.
And something my coach says to me still,
same with a
Neil,
client.
It only works if you do.
Yeah.
And it only works if I'm ready to make it work.
Yeah.
And so someone's readiness to change, if we look at the various strategies and tools around behaviour change, it doesn't matter what tactic I choose, someone's readiness and someone's commitment and someone's how they value that goal and how important that goal is and how willing and worthy they feel towards that goal would be prerequisites. But the overarching thing for me would be readiness. Yeah. Is someone ready to change?
I think the readiness also relates to their end outcome, which I know we'll go into the steps of that behaviour change.
We've got good habits and bad habits. Now we can have a discussion, but we can have
binary.
Well, that's it. Like, it's a this or that scenario, which I want you to consider. We could ditch straight away because we could have what we perceive to be healthy behaviours.
Yes.
But they could actually be long-term bad habits. So I could have a healthy behaviour of, say, I don't know, walking 10,000 steps per day.
Yes. That's a really good example, actually.
Okay, but
really good.
I could then have a bad habit where I have to perform this every single day, regardless of the day.
So you get to 9,800 steps and you're like, I can't go to bed. I have to go and do 200 more.
Or you've been on a long day out and you've only done 4,000 steps. It's 10 o'clock at night and you're like, well, I can't break this habit now.
The streak.
And I think it's called something like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something called Plato's Law, something like this, whereby you've invested so much time and energy into the habit that you will not back away from that habit or give it up.
Even if it doesn't serve you for your goal
Even if it doesn't serve us towards our behaviours or our habits.
And I think that's the difference of like good and bad, isn't it? Is that you can have good behaviours, but it becomes a bad habit if it no longer serves the result or the purpose that you wanted to.
An example, I was guilty of this morning, in fact, yesterday morning, as I wrote my daily email. So every day we write an email. to you guys. And so I'd invested maybe 40 minutes into this email, and it didn't seem to flow for me.
Right.
But because I'd have invested 40 minutes,
You weren't
I
gonna
was
ditch
so
it.
reluctant to ditch it and press delete and start again and go on a different approach, because I'd invested so much time. So I've got a good behaviour of daily consistent.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, but a bad habit
Whereby you don't want to lose it.
I don't want to lose it.
You can't let that go.
I can't let that go.
Whereas would it matter if that email didn't go out or it was a different one than what you'd planned?
Well, or just going, do you know what? It's time. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go and start again, regardless. As opposed to just persevering and battling it and effectively defying my own syntax and having resistance with myself.
It shows the opinion though, doesn't it, between the good and bad behaviours and habits. So your client might come to you in the consultation, you're chatting through all the things they do in their day, their good behaviours, their in their own opinion bad behaviours, and they're listing out their average day, and you go, ooh, I wouldn't do that. Like, that's a bad behaviour. Like, your own opinion of what they're saying, you're judging in your mind of like, well, that must be a bad behaviour. That's the thing I'll change. That's a good behaviour. But is that a personal opinion of what's good or bad? Or is it factually in relation to their specific outcome that they want to achieve?
Also,
is it a priority?
Also, is it necessary? Because if I was to be fully compliant to a therapeutic approach of motivational interviewing, of cognitive behaviour therapy, of NLP, then it's client-centred, which means I drop all judgment, which means I've got just bucket loads of empathy.
Nice.
Bucket loads of overflowing
that.
empathy.
Well, you're not going to open up that padlock syntax without that empathy, right?
No, completely. And so if I'm going in and saying straight away, well, you need to stop eating this, you need to start eating this, stop eating that. Now, I just put myself on a pedestal as an expert. Now, some clients might like that, but I want you to consider that from a long-lasting behaviour change, they're probably not going to make any formidable change towards the thing you want them to do, because it's so... We call it from a FITPRO perspective, we call it what's the word I'm thinking about, where you have lots of rigidity, lots of structure.
Oh, like really, really firm, like way too prescribed.
Yeah, prescribed. That's the word I'm looking for. As opposed to giving them options and allowing them.
This is the tugboat, right?
Yes.
So the tugboat is the prescription. You're going to eat this particular recipe, this particular plan. This is exactly what you want to do. Whereas the lighthouse is you going, these are all the things you have available to you. Looking at your food diary over the last week and knowing that you are in a calorie surplus at the moment. Where would you want to take this from? And they go, oh, there and there. Okay, let's try that. It was your decision.
And I think when we're really prescriptive and we are that tugboat coach, we're not allowing the client to make a decision to follow the road or the path they want to go. Now, I know as a FITPRO, okay, all my knowledge and expertise, the best road. And I could tell every client, do this, do this, do this, do that, do this, do this. And then once you've done that, do this.
Yes.
Okay? But that
this is the perfect plan.
This is the perfect plan. There is your yellow brick road. Go for it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the client's going to do what I say.
Well, it's really empowering if they've made the decision themselves, so they make the decision on the choice of their path based on all the information they have available to them. They are much more likely to turn that into a habit long term, because they're not just doing as you say.
There's one very powerful phrase that you could use to tee that up with your client. So you would say something along the lines of, do I have permission to tell you about the variety of options you could take towards your goal and your current food diary? Of course the client's going to turn around and say, yes, tell me more. Okay, cool. So
you've asked their permission
you've
first.
asked their permission. Effectively, you've said, I've got the right syntax of 1, 2, 3, 4. Do I have permission for you to now pull
and open up
open that padlock?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, now here are all your options. Which options, or which one of those can you see yourself doing, and why?
Nice.
So now that you've literally just put the whole plan in their lap.
Yeah.
So you know you're the expert. You know you could pave the yellow brick road for them, but you've basically said, look, these are all the cobbles you could take. Okay, which way do you want to lay them down?
Nice. They design their own yellow brick road.
Yes.
Nice, perfect. And then they're going to get the result every time because they're in control of it.
Of that.
And then also they take responsibility for knowing what did work and what didn't work, and then they can tweak it next time.
Well, the whole way along, it's I've got responsibility of a coach, but my responsibility as a coach is to actually show up and ask world-class questions, and to align with the client and know that I can back myself with confident expert knowledge to pave out this yellow brick road with them and for them.
And that's then their behaviour change.
And that's their behaviour change. But they have to take responsibility of the entire plan themselves. It's not my burden to bear.
No.
Like, let's take Bob. Let's just say he's 100 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
Okay. I could say to Bob, or I could think, we could just ask this question as us now. How long did it take you to get in this position? I could use a lifetime weight predictor chart, and Bob could turn around and say, well, Neale, it's taken me about 8 to 10 years to be here. Okay, cool. So it's not going to take 6 to 8 weeks to get out of it then. Yeah. And just being really open and honest and logical and say, well, it might not take 8 to 10 years to get out of it, but it took a long time to get into this state. It's going to take a considerable amount of time to get out of this state.
Yeah.
And it's your responsibility. You are responsible for where you are now, Bob.
Yeah. And now he knows what it is he wants to lead towards. And I think the biggest part is knowing where it is they're going. What is the big thing that they're about to pave their own yellow brick road to?
Yeah, because if I suddenly pave the yellow brick road for them and take full responsibility of the plan, I'm basically saying, to some degree, I'm responsible for you being here, and I'm responsible for liberating you.
Yeah.
But Bob is responsible for the last 8 to 10 years of his behaviours and habits, and that's why he's here in front of me today.
Yeah.
And it's my job as a coach to be responsible, to do some kind of assessment on consultation 1 or 2, to find out if he's truly ready to go down this path of the yellow brick road.
Amazing.
But it's his responsibility to say, do you know what, this is my bag now. I'm here. This is my fault.
And at least he knows
this is where I'm at. This is my current status.
Yeah.
And I'm ready. I'm ready to make a change.
Yeah. He's ready. He's responsible.
But it's not my responsibility to go, Bob, hold my hand. Come on, wrap your arms around me. Let me give you a piggyback. I'm the lighthouse.
And also, if you are tugboating in that respect, like giving him the yellow brick road exactly to where he's going to go, then you need to know the exact goal so clearly, because you might get there or part way there and him be like, this isn't what I meant. Like, when I said I wanted to lose weight and feel good, this isn't the life I wanted to lead.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to be eating this and not having any birthday cake with my son. I didn't want to be doing this. And he's kind of now got this other picture, whereas if he's in control, his picture, his result, his end outcome, every step he takes closer to it, he's like, this still feels good. This still feels good. I can see myself doing this long term. This still feels good. And it's his road.
Yes.
And it means more to him as well.
I'm effectively, together with my client Bob, I've got this big wheelbarrow of yellow cobbles and bricks.
Yeah, I like this yellow brick road.
Okay, and together, we go, cool. Do I have permission to ask a question? Ask for a question. And Bob goes, I want that yellow brick just there. I'm like, cool. It doesn't matter which brick you take, because I'm only offering yellow bricks. I'm only offering yellow bricks.
It's a weird Lego, isn't it?
Okay. There's no blue bricks or red bricks. There's only yellow bricks. But it doesn't matter which one you take. They're all going to get you closer towards your goal.
Nice.
Now, take that yellow brick and put it down. Cool. Do you see yourself doing that long term? Wicked. Are you ready to...
Only works if you do, eh?
Are you ready?
Ooh,
are you ready?
Lovely.
Are you ready for another brick, Bob?
Which brick do you want?
Which brick do you want?
Oh, I love it.
And that brings us to this kind of notion. If we look at, how long does it take to create a habit and a behaviour? Okay, if we look at Maxwell Maltz and Psychocybernetics, which was a great book back from like the 1960s. He had this great... the book's just phenomenal, so I just recommend go and read the book or the audio book. And we'll put the links below for it as well. But it was the first point that documented that 21 days.
Yes, 21 days
was on average a point in which
a behaviour could become a habit,
which would be an automatic behaviour without a great deal of conscious thought behind it. Now, again, we know that everyone's an individual. Okay, so some people took maybe slightly less. And some people took considerably more days. Yeah. But 21 days is, can you turn around and say, okay, so you've had fruit and veg for 21 days. You've had a healthy behaviour rather. Is that now a habit? It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if I now take myself away from this whole coaching situation, does Bob continue to eat the fruit and veg?
I think it's whatever triggers that behaviour in the first place, which you've got a great description.
But it comes down to me working with Bob in the early stages where it was client-centred and he picked up the yellow bricks. Because he chose the brick that said, I really like radish. And I can see myself eating radish because I've got all these reasons of why and where I could put radish into my day. I don't know why I chose radish.
I don't know.
And the radish brick goes down. I'm like, cool, Bob chose that. But if I said, Bob, what I'd really like you to do is eat celery.
You might be like, oh,
and
I don't
it's
really
like,
like
so
celery.
the first day, okay, starts eating it and he kicks off like the kids walking to school in the rain. Okay.
Oh, celery.
Resistance.
Celery.
Yeah. And then I turn around and go after 21 days, okay, Bob, our time has come where we part ways now. You're on your own. He's like, thank God for that.
No more celery.
However, if I apply behaviour change and I go, cool, there's, where in your world, what brick do you want to pick up? Where in your world do you see yourself eating these types of foods?
Yeah, nice. I like this. He goes, I pick this type of food and I can see myself doing it forever, in which case it's going to stick for longer.
And my wife eats these and I love these and she puts them in the kids' lunchbox. It's always in the house. It's incredibly easy to do.
Which reminds me perfectly of a 4-step process that really identifies behaviour and behaviour change.
And this is somewhat linked incredibly well to psychocybernetics and James Clear in the Atomic Habits book, and it crops up in a lot of research as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to call it, it's nothing we've made up, we're merely passing on knowledge, I suppose, which would be the 4 R's, which is where does a habit and behaviour, where do they draw the line and how do they get formed?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. So the 4 different steps as you go through it. And these 4 sections, the first thing is that there's a cue that happens.
Yeah.
So as this cue begins, that's the trigger, that's the thing that happens. So this cue happens, and then after the cue it goes on to a craving, which is an emotional state or a feeling or an emotion that happens as a result of the cue. And we'll go back into each of these in a bit more detail in a second. But after the craving, so you go cue, something happened, then I have an emotion or a feeling that comes from that one thing that happened. Yeah. And then as a result, I need to respond in a certain way. So I start responding forward or doing an action in a certain way, and then as a result of that action I get a reward that satisfies the cue that I originally had or the craving that I had. So they basically become this cycle between them, and the more that I have something that fits this or that is easy to do or that is to do with a really satisfying reward, the more likely I am to continue doing it. Like you said, he likes his radish, he keeps putting down the same radish brick every time.
So you could look at this from a forwards engineering of cue. What is it? The next one?
Of queuing, craving.
There we go. I couldn't get my words. Queuing, response,
and reward.
Or you could reverse engineer it and go, well, what is the reward we're after?
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Back to the response that you need to get the reward.
And therefore, what was the craving? And then what was the cue? So I could work, there's my syntax, right? I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1 to open up this up. So let's give an example. Let's say, for example, you smell a donut.
This is better than the coffee example you had.
Immediately, imagine smelling a donut. Right now, I want you to do it. Okay, the moment I say imagine smelling the donut, okay.
This happens in a shop, doesn't it? When you go in and all you can smell is
you could be walking out in the countryside. You could be walking on the moors or in the woods right now listening to this, and there could be no donuts around. But I go, imagine smelling a donut. Now, what happens?
I can smell a donut.
If you smell a donut, you start to have a craving, and you now start to get saliva build up in your mouth, and you start to crave, and you could imagine that sensation of the donut, of the jam, of the custard.
Oh, mine's not got jam. Mine's got
the
icing on the top and the little sprinkles on a ring donut.
So the next one down after that is
after your craving, you go into response.
So your response would be that you go and buy the donut.
Yeah, I'll go buy a donut
and
now.
The reward would be that you get all your cravings met.
It's met, it's achieved.
It's a met. So we've now got a full cycle.
But that all happens with the cue, and it doesn't happen unless you have the cue. Because without the cue, you don't have the craving.
And they could be conscious or unconscious.
Wow, okay.
So the question is what, for your client, is the ultimate reward?
Ah, nice.
Okay.
Good.
and what cues do you need to give them, or the yellow bricks do you need to facilitate with them in order to get said reward?
Yes.
I think the vast majority of clients don't truly know what it is they want from fitness. They can't articulate it clearly what they want from their goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be like, I want to be able to perform 10 pull-ups. Okay, why?
Well, that reward isn't there. It's not satisfying, is it? I've done 10. Okay, cool. Ooh.
Great.
Whee!
Yeah. So what is the reward? What do they get from their goal?
And it should be something that they get that's so satisfying that they want it. Like that donut doesn't need to taste so satisfying.
Well, if you had polar opposites of like, I really want that, or I'm not really bothered if I do get that.
Yeah.
The reward has to be so great, it outweighs all of the opportunities of, I am not really feeling it today. So I've done a lot of ultra runs before. I've gone out in all weathers. I've come home, and you've seen this, I've come home from a run off the moors with my beard and my hair fully frozen where it's been snowing.
Yeah.
Now the reward of getting to my goal in June and running and competing to a decent level and finishing in a top place, okay, far outweighed, all the discomfort I had to do. And that's what the reward has to do. It has to be so rewarding, okay, that I am willing to do and I'm ready to do the work today in spite of all of the things that I could say, it's snowing up on Dartmoor, I'm not going to do that. It's cold outside or it's raining outside. Okay.
And I think also the next step when you come back from that result, that absolute result, that satisfying reward result, is to go back to the response, the action that you're going to take. And the easier you make that action, the more simple it is. Like you said with Bob laying down his yellow bricks, he chose radish because his wife also has radish. So it's that kind of like, he knows it's already in the house. They know that is easy to do. Yeah. An easy response is always going to help you get to the end outcome much quicker than a difficult one.
Cue, you could turn around and say, so the first part of it, you've got the cue being, you've got to make it obvious. If you want to make the habit easy, you've got to make the cue really obvious.
Yeah, okay, cool. So what would that kind of cue be?
So I think a better way of saying that is making the cue visible. Something that is easily seen, something they do already, something that's already part of their routine. Okay? It's obvious to do this now. If that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So it's something that they already do, that's visible. It's not something they have to think about going and starting to do.
And then the next step of craving would be you've got to make it attractive. You've got to, if you're going to crave something like the donut, it's like, donuts. It's like Homer Simpson style.
Yeah.
It's donuts.
Whereas Bob with his celery isn't like, lovely.
It's got to be attractive, yeah. And so everyone's wired in a different way. You know, people find different things
that's the syntax,
that's the syntax, right? So you've got to find out what is it they're attracted to, what are they craving here, okay, and working with that.
Yeah, so that you can set a response in place, and therefore get the result that you want overall.
So to kind of backtrack a little bit, to break a bad habit from a cue, we've said that. Well, let's not confuse it. To build a good habit, you would make it obvious.
Yes.
To break a bad habit, you would make it invisible. So you would take the cue away. If you could take the cue away of a bad habit that cues up a bad habit, and they don't see it, then they're not going to be exposed to it. So therefore, they don't have that 4-step syntax.
When I think about the amount of times that I've wanted to start something new, so let's even like January 1st, I want to start something new, and the amount of times I totally forgot to do that today.
Yeah.
And like just totally forgot because it's not linked to any part of my world or my day.
So there's the example. So you would write something down, and that's what helped you to do is to write it down and have a very clear on your whiteboard in your office. So it became visible. So you were like, I've been reminded of my goal.
Yeah.
It's a cue. Like you literally have to be like, bam, like it's in front of me.
Yes.
So if I wanted to break the bad habit, I would take that cue away.
And make it invisible.
Make it invisible.
Nice.
Okay. So then from a craving perspective, I need to make this really attractive.
To adopt a new habit, or if it's to get rid of a rubbish one.
Make it really unattractive.
Yeah, well, like if you now suddenly don't like
If you don't like it, then you're not going to do it. So then the next one is like the response. You've got to make it easy. So we said for Bob, like eating radish. So if his wife eats radish and his kids eat radish, I don't know why I said. But it's really easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easy.
It's easy to do
because it's in the house. They already consume.
Whereas if I make it difficult, okay, which would be breaking a bad habit,
to
make it difficult, okay, then you're not going to do it.
Which is like the whole thing of like, I need to stop having loads of chocolate bars, for example. So I'm going to make it difficult by not having access to all those chocolate bars.
There you go.
Exactly. And then you get the result at the end, or that final reward.
Which has to be made satisfying. There needs to be an element or a high level of satisfaction upon completion to go, do you know what? My cravings are met. I was exposed to a cue. My cravings were high, which made me take action, and it was easy to take action, and the satisfaction met that of the high craving.
Amazing.
That's what makes the habit, good or bad.
And then you get your new behaviour, which is your
new habit. Or from a bad habit would be, I need to make that really unsatisfying, so that if they were to eat the chocolate, they go, do you know, I didn't really hit the spot. Because
they're thinking about what that relates to.
So if I think that for me would be, okay, so I actually really like chocolate. Who doesn't? Okay, whatever platform you're on, just drop a comment and let me know what chocolate bar is your favourite one. Okay, so if I was to buy really dark chocolate, okay, and it was quite bitter, I wouldn't get the same satisfaction from it.
Okay, so I'll just fill the cupboards with dark chocolate instead of milk chocolate and you'll be fine.
So I need to break at least one of those 4 steps.
Yeah, nice.
So I can still have it readily available, make it easy. But every time I have a bite of a dark chocolate, really dark, the bitter stuff, I'm like, no, it's not. I'm still
not really the same.
It's not hitting the spot.
It's not hitting the spot. Amazing. So what I love about that is that shows that wherever that break happens, somewhere on those 4,
which is a decision process,
then you're able
a cycle.
Then as a FITPRO, if you can facilitate that break somewhere, then you will help them remove old habits and behaviours and then start to reform a new habit and behaviour based on creating a new sequence of cue and all the way through to reward.
I can't stress how important that would be of holding this yellow brick road, of saying, okay, so one of the cues I'm going to give you is, I've got lots of cues I could give you, in fact. Which one would you like?
Oh,
they all happen to be yellow. Do you know what I mean? And he places a yellow, Bob places a yellow cue down and go, okay, cool. So the next step would be the craving. What craving that helps you go towards your goal? What healthy habit craving is going to be a healthy habit behaviour that you want to crave that gets you closer towards your goal? Look, they all of them here all happen to be yellow. Which one do you want?
Place it down.
Place it down for me.
Nice.
Over you go. Next one would be, okay, so the actions you're going to take, the response, the actual, the actual process of taking action is you're going to go out and buy radish. Cool, I'm going to make it really easy.
Yeah.
And here are the process tasks I want you to do. You're going to place this on your shopping list. You're going to go and make it really easy. You're going to do your shopping list online. You're going to get it ordered on a particular day.
Yeah.
You're all going to be there your family are going to be there when it turns up. You're all going to put it away. You all know where it is. You're all going to be part of making food. Make it really easy.
Yeah.
Cool. Which one do you want to choose? There's all the yellow bricks that make this process easy. Take the yellow brick that you want to take. And it's not for me to suggest which one because they all work.
Nice.
Okay, place it down for me. Over you go. And now the reward is you eat the radish. You go, oh, wow, it tastes amazing. I love that I can keep radish in.
I'm really enjoying walking over my yellow brick road I built.
That I built completely.
Amazing. I love this so much because I don't know if you guys listening to this, but when Neale was talking then, I was just constantly reminding myself of all the times where I've changed something, usually that you've helped me. And I was thinking back to the time where...
I've changed so many
I was thinking back to the time where I proper used to have like a 3 o'clock cake.
It was bad.
Issue,
It was bad.
Proper 3 o'clock. Like 3 o'clock came, it's time for cake, right? That's all I wanted. So in that time, I had a cue in that like 3 o'clock hit.
Perfect.
I had the specific craving of like, I need sugar, I need calories, I need something satisfying with a cup of coffee. That's my craving.
Yeah.
I want that. And then my response, literally, I would walk over the road. There's a little cafe. I could buy a really lovely, like, good sized cake for like hardly anything. Or if I waited till 3:15, I could probably get it for free. Anyway, and then my reward would be, actually the reward wasn't just the taste. It was the moment of time out where I could sit, relax, have some cake. It didn't need to be cake in the end result. It didn't need to be cake to get the same reward, which was the unpicking that you helped me do to go, actually, well, now when 3 o'clock comes, I don't have that craving because you helped me get a better lunch that allowed me to have more satiation, and also to understand that what I was craving was time out. So take 10 minutes, go for a walk and have a coffee, not
Perfect.
go and dive into a massive chocolate cake. It was actually that I didn't need what I thought I needed. I needed the sort of secondary of it.
And there's various tools within motivational interviewing, because there's a set of tools to build up this therapeutic approach. Then you've got cognitive behavioural therapy, then you've got NLP, you've got hypnosis, you've got a whole host of other practices you could do that build upon this notion of this cycle of cue, craving, response, reward.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that allows you to take this cycle and break the cycle at any one of those and unpick it. And it's just that's what your job is as a FITPRO, I think. That's what the role of a FITPRO is to facilitate change.
So all these tools, all these strategies we're going to talk about throughout all of this season will come back to the principle that we've just outlined of those 4 steps.
Yeah.
Because you'll come back to all of the different tools, all the different strategies are just a different way of getting a hole in the wall, which is what you said about the hammer or the drill bit. Either way, you're breaking that chain of the 4 things.
Yes, completely.
And that's what we're going to do throughout all of season 8, which is so exciting.
And if you think like, okay, but I got into fitness because I wanted to help people, train at home or achieve the same transformation that you have. But that still comes down to behaviour change, right? That still comes down to you changed your behaviour and built a habit that served you, whether you're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, very
And
different.
so we're still going to apply things like specific adaptation to an imposed demand and the components of fitness and muscular strength, muscular endurance.
That doesn't go anywhere.
They're all our cobbles. They're our cobbles.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to turn around to a client and say, okay, cool, there's lots of ways you could get to your goal. What do you enjoy most? Do you enjoy, really basic,
cardio,
like really,
or do you
really,
enjoy
really,
resistance
really crude
more?
here and say, exactly right. Do you enjoy cardio or resistance? Go, well, actually, I do enjoy resistance training. Cool, let's do resistance training then. So that's going to be our biases.
Do you want to do it twice a week or 3 times a week to start off with?
Yeah, but so, at the moment, you say, well, you currently do twice a week. Should we just stick with twice a week, or do you want to do less or more? Because it's just a starting point. It's just the starting platform. And now we've got our biases and say, well, regardless, we're going to do at least 60% of our time minimum towards resistance training. Okay, cool. Where are we going to start? Well, I've got single sets, basic sets. Yeah, or DeLorme and Watkins. I go, cool. Well, I could outline them,
and they might not know anything.
They might not know anything about them, but it's our job to educate them. So in the first couple of sessions, you could have basic sets, single sets, and DeLorme and Watkins. And at the end of that, and during it, you can say, which one did you enjoy most? They go, I really enjoyed that one. I go, okay, that was DeLorme and Watkins. That's where we did 50% effort on the first set, 75% effort on the second set, and 100% effort of full overload on the third and final set.
Love it.
If we were to go forwards next week, would you want more of that in? Wicked. Let's do more of that. Okay, cool.
What I love about
and
this,
you're literally going.
much.
I've got this wealth of knowledge, and you have this wealth of knowledge of training approaches behind you, and you're just going to facilitate all of these yellow bricks and say, cool, which one do you want?
But notice that comes from being client-centred and asking great questions, which for me is what behaviour change is all about. So you've asked those great questions, you're client-centred, and doesn't that just take all that overwhelm of your planning and it being perfect first time out of it? Because it's not that you going, this is exactly what you're going to do, but you allow them to have input. Which cobble do you want?
It gives them control.
Yeah.
It places a responsibility into their hands.
I like it.
As opposed to me being the dictator, so to speak, of having an external locus of control where I become the person of influence. I become the person of this is how we're going to do it and we're going to do it my way. My way works. Well, actually, that's not correct. That's not technically right.
Yeah.
Okay, there's 100 ways to skin a cat. There's multiple roads that lead to Rome, and we know that as FITPROs, right?
Yeah.
So we're merely going to say, cool, well, which road do you want to take? I suggest we, here's a question, and let's just give you yellow cobbles. We can meander there, and we will get there eventually.
But it puts them back in that driver's seat.
Because
so
there
to
will
speak.
come a time whereby you're no longer working with the client. There will come a time where they've achieved their goal, and then you'll part ways, and in an ideal world, you'll bump into them at four months or 8 months or 4 years down the line, and I'll be going, hey Bob,
I still do that.
How are you still doing it? He goes, that radish, mate, it's amazing. I still have it every day.
Good old radish.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. It's for me to educate the client to get from A to B, and along the way, allow them to realise that they can do this on their own.
Nice.
That they are educated in the various nutritional approaches that suit them.
Yeah.
The various training approaches
and
that
principles.
Suit them, and principles that suit them. And for them to be able to leave the programme going, do you know what, not only did I get the goal, you made it incredibly enjoyable. And I've never enjoyed exercise or nutrition before. It's been a minefield, and I've always self-sabotaged. But you made it like so goddamn easy and so much fun. And I'm doing this.
So powerful.
And that's behaviour change.
That's behaviour change. That was one hell of a episode, wasn't it?
Because I think, like, just to continue, really quickly, because we live in a world of like such short-term and immediate gratification. If I want something, I could have a Domino's pizza at my door within 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Cue, craving,
response and reward. Yeah,
so
literally
we
live
in a world whereby we want results in an instant, but we're talking about the laws of the body. We're talking about laws of the body that have been from the start of our ancestors, of human mankind, as we pulled ourselves upright into this erect Homo sapien position, correct?
Yeah.
And so we're governed by laws and rules of how our brain is wired from hundreds of thousands of years ago, yet we live in 2021. And
no wonder we have battles with that.
And the daily stresses and pressures of what we experience here in the world as we know it, our map of the world as we know it right now, are very different to our ancestors that would have a cue for water, a cue for food, a cue for procreation, a cue for...
Well, they're all survival related.
They're all survival
Whereas
related.
ours are much more about pleasure related, usually nowadays, because survival's the given.
But I want you to well, is it? Our brain doesn't know the difference. No. Our brain is still waiting for the saber-toothed tiger to come out of Costa.
Nice.
But the saber-toothed tiger is no longer a tiger with big teeth. The saber-toothed tiger is now a donut. The modern day saber-toothed tiger is a donut. That's what I want you to consider.
Problem is that saber-toothed tiger tastes very good in the moment, yet long term might be a bit of a risk.
The real problem is the saber-toothed tiger only cropped up in our ancestors' worlds once or twice in their whole lifetime.
Yeah.
But the donut could crop up once or twice a day in my lifetime.
Oh, well.
There's the main problem.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that?
How do you deal with that? And that's what the future... episodes are gonna uncover.
Oh, it's exciting.
What a teaser.
That is a teaser.
And on that bombshell, we will see you bright and breezy next week. Do leave a comment. I really want to know, what is it you've learned from today?
Yeah, what's your big takeaway?
What's your big takeaway? Jump inside the inner circle. The links are below. And I hope you've enjoyed this one. Season 8.
Season 8, episode 1. And we will see you next week for episode 2 when we dive deeper into behaviour change.
See you later.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a FITPRO doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a FITPRO? This is the FITPRO Session Podcast with Parallel Coaching.